Welcome back to 6-Minute Math, where we turn confusion into clarity 6 minutes at a time. Thank you so much for joining us today for our video on finding the volume of composite figures, the extended version. Ring that bell to get notified of more 6-minute content coming your way in the future. We will not have a timer today as we are having an extended version of this video to ensure that everyone gets ample understanding for as long as it takes. So let's get into our key points. The volume can be understood as the amount of space that an object takes up. To find the volume of composite figures, we are going to calculate the volume of each of those objects separately, and then add all those volumes together to get a total volume for that composite figure. Please remember that all volume is given in the form of unit cubed, as volume is a three-dimensional concept. Therefore, our unit for our final answer has to be in 3 dimensions. So let's check out an example here. We have a house that we are going to find the volume of. Now, our house is split into 2 three-dimensional objects that we will find out separately. We have a rectangular prism, and we are going to add that to the other three-dimensional object of a triangular prism. So let's first find the volume for that rectangular prism. The volume for rectangular prisms is length times width times height. We have a length of 7, a width of 5, and a height of 3. So I plug those numbers in, and then I solve to have a volume of that rectangular prism of 105. We're going to add that to our chart just to help us stay organized depending on how many shapes you have. We're then going to figure out the volume of the triangular prism. So we're going to use base times height divided by 2 times our length. Our base is 5, our height is 2, and our length is 7. We have our 5 times 2 divided by 2 times 7, and that's going to equal 35. So that also goes into our chart. We have found our 2 three-dimensional objects, so we're going to add those up. 105 plus 35 is 140, giving us a total volume for this object of 140. So let's check out an example here. We are going to find the volume of the following object, rounded to the nearest tenth. For this composite shape, we have 2 three-dimensional objects. We have a rectangular prism, and a cylinder. We'll do the rectangular prism here in blue. So we're just going to shade that to keep organized with my shape. And let's do that cylinder in red. For our rectangular prism, we have a length, a width, and a height. So I'm going to take those and put them into my formula. So that volume is equal to 5 times 6 times 4 for a rectangular prism volume of 120. The volume of that cylinder here in red is equal to pi r squared times height, which is also the same as pi times 2 squared times 4. I can plug that into a calculator for a volume of 50.26548 ... The total volume of this composite shape is to take my rectangular prism volume and add it with my cylinder. So I add those together for a total volume of 170.26548 ... And then my question tells me to round to the nearest tenth. So my total volume is 170.3 cubic centimeters. Let's check out another example here. We're going to find the volume of the following object, rounded to the nearest hundredth. The two objects I have are a sphere or a half sphere and a cylinder. So let's do our cylinder in green. I'll just outline that. And we'll do that hemisphere in blue. So let's do our cylinder first. We have our volume of our cylinder is pi times r squared h. And I plug my numbers in. Pi times 4 squared times 3. And that's going to give me a cylindrical volume of 150.7964. Then I'm going to find the volume of that half sphere. To do that, I'm going to use the volume of that full sphere. So we have 4/3 pi r cubed, which is the same as 4/3 pi times that radius of 4 cubed, giving me a sphere total volume of 268.0825. Now I have to realize here that I am working with only a half sphere and not a full sphere. So what I'm actually going to do is divide that full sphere by 2 for a hemisphere volume of 134.04128. I now have the volume of my cylinder and my hemisphere, so I'm going to add those together. We have a volume of 284.8377. And then my question tells me to round it to the nearest hundredth. So we have a volume of 284.84 cubic meters. Let's try another one. We're going to find the volume of the following. And in this composite figure, I actually have a cylinder and a cone as my objects. So let's do that cylinder here in yellow. And we'll do my cone in red. So let's do that cylinder first. Our volume is pi r squared times height. We have pi times 1.5 squared times 12. And I can find that volume as 84.8230. Let's check out the volume of that cone. So the volume of that cone is 1/3 pi r squared times the height, which is the same as 1/3 pi times 1.5 squared times 3. One of those cones is going to have a volume of 4.71238. And then I just have to understand that I have two cones. I have one on the top, one on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply that by 2 for a volume of cones of 9.42477. We have the volume of our cylinder and the volume of both cones. So we add those together for a total volume of 94.2477. Says we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So we have a total volume of 94.2 cubic feet. On to another example. We're going to find the volume of the following. And in this case, we have a rectangular prism and a sphere, or a hemisphere in this case. So let's do that rectangular prism here in blue. And we're going to find that hemisphere in yellow. So the volume of that rectangular prism is length times width times height. We have our length, our width, and our height here, which is equal to 21 times 21 times 5, giving us a rectangular prism volume of 2,205. We're now going to find the volume of our sphere here in yellow, and we're going to use that formula of 4/3 pi r cubed. Our radius is 6, so we have 4/3 times pi 6 cubed, giving us a total spherical volume of 904.7786. But like in our example 2 ago, we only have half a sphere here, so we're going to divide that by 2 for a total half spherical volume of 452.3893. And then we need to decide what we do. We have our rectangular prism and the volume, and if you can see here, my hemisphere is actually cut out of that rectangular prism. So what I'm actually going to do in this situation is subtract our two volumes together. Our total volume is going to be 2,205 minus 452.3 ... which is going to give us a final volume of 1,752.6106. My question asks me to round it to the nearest hundredth. So my total volume is 1,752.61 cubic centimeters. We have our second to last example here. We're going to find the volume of the following object. And in this specific case, I have three separate shapes. I have this rectangular prism here in red. I have a triangular prism, which I will do in blue. And then I actually have a cylinder here, which I will do in green, that is removed from my rectangular prism. So let's use our formulas. Let's do this rectangular prism first. We have length times width times height. So we label here. So we're going to have 7 times 14 times 4 for a rectangular prism volume of 392. Let's figure out that triangular prism here in blue. So that volume is base times height divided by 2. So we have 3 times 2.5 divided by 2. And all of that is multiplied by my length of 7. So I have a triangular prism volume of 26.25. Lastly, I have that volume of the cylinder here in green. So we have pi r squared. We have pi, our radius is 1 squared, times the length of that cylinder of 7, giving us a cylindrical volume of 21.99114. Now it is up for us to decide what we are doing with each of these volumes. We are having a total of the rectangular prism plus the triangular prism, and we're going to remove that cylinder. So our total volume is going to be equal to 392 plus 26.25 minus 21.99114. Meaning our total volume is going to be 396.2586. Question is asking me to round it to the nearest hundredth. So I have a volume of 396.26 inches cubed. On to our last example here. We are going to find the volume of the following. And it might look like a lot, but we actually only have 4 separate objects. We'll do that rectangular prism here in blue. So let's do that first. We have our volume of length times width times height. We have our length, width, and height of 8 times 32 times 6 for a rectangular prism volume of 1,536. Next, I'm going to do my cylinders, and we're going to do those in red. Let's just make sure our colors are coded here. So we have 3 cylinders. They are all the same. So I'm going to find one of my cylinders and multiply it by 3. My one cylinder is pi times radius of 4 squared times the height of 8. As you can see here, my radius is 4 for all of these cylinders. The height is 8. Meaning one cylinder is going to have a volume of 402.1238. And there are 3 of those, so I multiply it by 3 for a total cylindrical volume of 3 of them for 1,206.37157. Next, I am going to do my 2 hemispheres here in yellow. Now, one thing to understand about these hemispheres is if I take 2 of them and put them together, I will have a full sphere. So I'm actually going to use just my formula for a sphere as is, because one sphere is equal to 2 identical hemispheres, which I have here in my object. So we have 4/3 pi times my radius of 4 cubed, meaning I have a total spherical volume of 268.08257. My last shape I need to find is this cone. So we're going to do that here in green. I have the cone volume of 1/3 pi times that radius of 4 squared times that height of 6.5. I only have the one cone, so that volume is going to be 108.9085. At this point, I am just adding up all of my objects. I have the 1 rectangular prism, 3 cylinders, 2 hemispheres, and a cone. So our total volume is going to be 1,536 plus 1,206.3715 plus 268.08257 plus that cone of 108.9085. I add all those up for a total volume of 3,119.3626. And then lastly, it asks me to round it to the nearest tenth. So I have a total volume of 3,119.4 cubic inches. Those are all the examples we have today for finding the volume of composite figures. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at 6Minute Math, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below for any topic you want to see me tackle in a future 6-minute episode. Always remember that the best way to get math is to practice math, so keep on practicing. And until next time, keep solving and evolving.